there. This is going to be my first solo ASMR stream. Good to see you in chat, Nix. I hope you're doing well. So yeah, the structure for today's stream is ASMR. I figure that I'll bring us into this nice library scene because we're going to be doing mostly poetry and short story readings. The idea being a little bit of a roleplay in which I, in the world of Altera, have brought you into the library where I will tell you some stories that we've had fall into the hands of our world from beyond the rift. And yeah, I hope that everyone will enjoy it today. I am quite a bit frightened, to be honest. I like to be a bit more prepared, but it just seemed that, I don't know, I didn't feel that I could really prepare all that well for today's stream. So, this is the best that I could do. Please do let me know if the audio could use any adjustments. I have several different tracks layering the different types of effects that you hear in the back, as well as I can adjust my own gain on my microphone and of course my speaking tone. But yeah, I don't know that we'll do much in the way of any type of triggers or anything. I'm not opposed to doing any if anyone has any suggestions of some that they would like. But for the most part it will be nice, soft speaking. I'm not sure if going live at about 6 p.m. my time was really the right way to do things, but I looked around a little bit to try to find the optimal time to go live in the ASMR category, and this seemed to be the preferred time of day. So this is the time that we started with. It is a little bit early for me, considering the type of relaxed vibes that we have here, but I'm certainly not opposed to spending a good amount of time here. Alright, so, I really should have gotten like a book asset or something to put in front of me. Oh well. I think first we'll start with a poem by Lewis Carroll. This would be a poem that Lewis Carroll would make in 1832. Lewis Carroll is also the author of Alice in Wonderland, or Alice's Adventures in the Underworld, or is it Underground? Either way, Lewis Carroll most famously made Alice in Wonderland, which I of course owe quite a bit to, since I am the King of Hearts for Altera Vita, and all of Altera owes quite a bit of our theme to that work of fiction, so only fitting that we pay tribute to some of Lewis Carroll's works. Alright, so this is a poem called Jabberwocky. It is within the sequel of Alice Through the Looking Glass. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wa. All mimsy were the borough groves, and the mome raths outgrave. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the maxim foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes aflame, came whiffling through the togy wood, and burbled as it came, 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker snack, He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, callooh callay, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig and slithy toes did gyre and gimble in the wob. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome wrath outgrabe. And that was Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. It is a, how do you call it? What's the description? It's a nonsense poem. It's about the killing of a creature named the Jabberwock. It was included in his 1871 novel Through the Looking Glass, the sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. In the early scene, when she first encounters the chess piece characters White King and White Queen, Alice finds a book written in seemingly unintelligible language. Realizing that she is traveling through an inverted world, she recognizes that the verses of the pages are written in mirror writing. She holds a mirror to one of the poems and reads the reflected verse of Jabberwocky. She finds the nonsense verse as puzzling as the odd land she has passed into, later revealed as a dreamscape. Jabberwocky is considered one of the greatest nonsense poems written in English. Its playful, whimsical language has given English nonsense words and neologisms such as galumphing and chortle. Let's check out one of Lewis Carroll's other poems, shall we? Acrostic, 1832. Wait, maybe... No, we won't read that one. This one suits me. No. You know what? Let's do some Edgar Allan Poe. Those are quite good. The Sleeper by Edgar Allan Poe, 1809. At midnight in the month of June, I stand beneath the mystic moon. An opiate vapor, dewy dim, exhales from out her golden rim, and softly dripping drop by drop upon the quiet mountain top, steals drowsily and musically into the universal valley. The rosemary nods upon the grave, the lily lolls upon the wave. Wrapping the fog about its breast, the ruin moulders into rest. Looking like lithe sea, the lake conscious slumber seems to take, and would not for the world awake. All beauty sleeps, and lo, where lies her casement open to the skies, Irene with her destinedness. O lady bright, can it be right, this window open to the night? The wanton airs from treetop, laughingly through the lattice drop. The bodiless airs of wizard rout flit through thy chamber in and out, and wave the curtain canopy so fitfully, so fearfully. Above the closed and fringed lid, 'neath with thy slumbering soul lies hid, that o'er the floor and down the wall, like ghosts the shadows rise and fall. O lady dear, hast thou no fear? Why and what art thou dreaming here? Sure thou art come o'er far off seas, a wonder to these garden trees. Strange is thy pallor, strange thy dress, strange above all, thy length of trees, and this all solemn silentness. The lady sleeps, oh may her sleep, which is enduring, so be deep. Heaven have her in sacred keep, this chamber changed for one holy, this bed for one more melancholy. I pray to God that she may lie forever with unopened eye, while the pale sheeted ghosts go by. My love, she sleeps, oh may her sleep. It is lasting, so be deep, soft may the worms about her creep, for in the forest dim and old, for her may some tall vault unfold, some vault that oft hath flung its black and winged panels fluttering back, triumphant o'er the crested palls of her grand family funerals. Some sepulchre remote alone, against whose portals hath she shone. She hath thrown in childhood many an idle stone, some tomb from out whose sounding door she ne'er shall force an echo more. Thrilling to think, poor child of sin, it was the dead who groaned within. That was The Sleeper by Edgar Allan Poe. Oh my, what? Some of these say 2018. How can that be right? I suppose maybe they were unearthed later. Alright, we have Song by Edgar Allan Poe. This one is a bit shorter. I saw thee on the bridal day, when a burning blush came o'er thee. Though happiness around thee lay, the world of love before thee, and in thine eye a kindling light, whatever it might be, was all on earth my aching sight of loveliness could see. That blush perhaps was maiden shame, as such it well may pass, though its glow hath raised a fiercer flame in the breast of him, alas, who saw thee on the bridal day, when that deep blush would come o'er thee. Though happiness around thee lay, the world all love before thee. Next up, To the River. Fair river, in thy bright clear flow of crystal wandering water, thou art an emblem of the glow of beauty, the unhidden heart, the playful maziness of art, an old Alberto's daughter. But when within thy wave she looks, which glisten then and trembles, why then the prettiest of brooks her worshipper resembles. For in my heart, as in thy stream, her image deeply lies, his heart which trembles at the beam of her soul's searching eyes. Next we have An Enigma. Seldom we find, says Solomon Don Dunce, half an idea in the profoundest sonnet, through all the flimsy things we see at it, as easily as through as Naples' bonnet. Trash of all trash, how can a lady don it? Yet heavier far than the pretentious stuff, ow downy nonsense that faintest puff twirls into trunk paper the while you con it. Invertibly sole it right enough, the general tuckermanities and arid bubbles, ephemeral and so transparent, but this is now, you may depend upon it, stable, opaque, immortal, all by dint of dear names that lie concealed within it. because I feel that in the heavens above the angels whispering to one another can find among their burning terms of love none so devotional as that of mother. Therefore by that dear name I long have called you, you who are more than mother unto me, and fills my heart of hearts where death instilled you. In setting my Virginia spirit tree, my mother, my own mother who died early, was but the mother of myself, but you are mother to the one I loved so dearly, and thus are dearer than the mother I knew. By the infinity with which my wife was dearer to my soul than its soul life. Interesting. I don't know the history of Edgar Allan Poe's mother, but I imagine that it must have been something rather difficult. Let me get a drink of my water for a moment. Alright. Next we have A Valentine, still doing Edgar Allan Poe's poems. For her this rhyme is penned, whose luminous eyes, brightly expressive as the twins of Loeda, shall find her own sweet name at nestling lies upon the page enwrapped from every reader. Search narrowly the lines, they hold a treasure divine, a talisman, an amulet, that must be worn at heart. Search well the measure, the words, the syllables, do not forget the trivialest point, or you may lose your labor. And yet there is in there no Gordian knot, which one might not undo without a saber, if one could merely comprehend the plot. Enwritten upon the leaf where now are peering eyes scintillating so, there lie, Perdus, 3 eloquent words oft uttered in the hearing of poets by poets, as the name is a poet's too. Its letters, although naturally lying, like the knight Pinto, Mendez Ferdinando, still form a synonym for truth. Cease trying. You will not read the riddle, though you do the best you can do. I think that one's so short, we'll skip that. Some of these are his letters, so they're a little bit difficult to decipher. This is a bit better. Hymn to Astogatan and Harmodius. Wreathed in myrtle my sword I'll conceal, like the champions devoted and brave, when thee plunged in the tyrant their steel, and to Athens their deliverance gave. Beloved heroes, your deathless souls roam in the joy-breathing isles of the blessed, where the mighty of old have their home, where Achilles and Diomed rest. In flesh myrtle my blade I'll entwine, like Harmodius the gallant and good, when he made at the Titula shrine a libation of tyranny's blood. Ye deliverers of Athens from shame, ye avengers of liberty's wrongs, endless ages shall cherish your flame, embalmed in their echoing songs. Next, the conqueror worm. Lo, 'tis a gala night. Within the lonesome latter years, an angel throng bewinged, bedight, in veils and drowned in tears, sit in theatre to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly, mere puppets they who come and go, at biting of vast formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings invisible woe. That motley drama, oh be sure, it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth to the self-same spot, and much of madness and more of sin and horror the soul of the plot. But see amid the mimic rout a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that rise from out the scenic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs, the mimes become its food, and angels sob at vermin fangs, in human gore imbued. Out, out of the lights, out all, and over each quivering form the curtain of funeral pall comes down with a rush of storm, and angels all pallid and wan, uprising and unveiling affirm that play is the tragedy, man and its hero the conqueror worm. Next, in youth I have known one. How often we forget all time when lone, admiring nature's universal throne, her woods, her wilds, her mountains, the intense reply of hers to our intelligence. In youth I have known one with whom the earth in secret communing held as he with it, in daylight and in beauty from his birth, whose fervid flickering torch of life was lit from the sun and stars whence he had drawn forth a passionate light such for his spirit was fit, and yet that spirit knew not in the hour of its own fervor what he had o'er it power. Perhaps it may be that my mind is wrought to a fervor by the moonbeam that hangs o'er, but I will half believe that wild light fraught with more of sovereignty than ancient lore hath ever told, or is it of a thought the embodied essence and no more, that with a quickening spell doth o'er us pass, as dew of the night time o'er the summer grass. Hello, Abrupt. Good to see you. I hope you are well. Do be sure to let me know if the audio is in order. I'm just reading some poetry by Edgar Allan Poe right now. Doth o'er us pass, when as thy expanding eye to the loved objects sow the tear to the lid, will start which lately slept in apathy, and yet it need not be that object hid from us in life but common which doth lie each hour before us, but then only bid with a strange sound, as of harp string broken, twake us. 'Tis a symbol and a token of what in other worlds shall be, and given in beauty by our God to those alone who otherwise would fall from life and heaven, drawn by their heart's passion and that high tone of the spirit which hath striven, though not with faith, with godliness, whose throne With desperate energy, 'twas hath beaten down, wearing its own deep feeling as a crown. Next is just titled Hymn. At morn, at noon, at twilight dim, Maria, thou hast heard my hymn. In joy and woe, in good and ill, Mother of God, be with me still. When the hours flew brightly by, and not a cloud obscured the sky, my soul, lest it be traught be, thy grace did guide to thine and thee. Now when storms of fate o'ercast darkly my present and my past, let my future radiant shine with sweet hopes of thee and thine. I think that's my favorite yet. Next is titled To Isidore. Beneath the vine-clad eaves, whose shadows fall before thy lowly cottage door, under the lilac tremulous leaves, within thy snowy clasped hand, the purple flowers it bore. Last eve in dreams I saw thee stand, like queenly nymphs from a fairy land, enchantress of the flowery wand, most beauteous Isidore. And when I bade thee dream, upon thy spirit flee, thy violet eyes to me, upturned did overflowing seem with the deep untold delight of love's serenity, thy classic brow like lilies white, and pale as the imperial night. Upon her throne with stars bedight, enthralled my soul to thee. I behold thy dreamy, passionate eyes, blue as the languid skies, hung with the sunset's fringe of gold. Now strangely clear thine image grows, and olden memories are startled from their long repose, like shadows on the silent snows, when suddenly the night wind blows, where quiet moonlight ties. Like music heard in dreams, like strands of harps unknown, of birds forever flown, audible as the voice of streams that murmur in some leafy dell. I hear thy gentlest tone, and silence cometh with her spell, like that which on my tongue doth dwell, when tremulous in dreams I tell my love to thee alone. In every valley heard, floating from tree to tree, less beautiful to me, the music of the radiant bird, than artless accents such as thine, whose echoes never flee. Ah, how for thy sweet voice I pine, for uttered in thy tones benign, enchantress, this rude name of mine doth seem a melody. That's pretty good. Next is titled To Zante. Fair isle, that from the forest of all flowers thy gentlest of all gentle names dost take, how many memories of what radiant hours at sight of thee and thine at once wake. How many scenes of what departed bliss, how many thoughts of what entombed hopes, how many visions of a maiden that is no more, no more upon thy verdant slopes, no more, alas, that magical sound. Transforming all, thy charms shall please no more, thy memory no more, accursed ground henceforth, I hold thy flower enameled shore, O hyacinth isle, O purple Zante, Isadora, Fiero di Lavante. Next is titled The Village Street. In these rapid, restless shadows once I walked at eventide, when a gentle, silent maiden walked in beauty at my side. She alone there walked beside me, all in beauty like a bride. Pallidly the moon was shining on the dewy meadows nigh, on the silvery, silent rivers, on the mountains far and high, on the ocean's starlit waters, where the winds a-weary die. Slowly, silent we wandered from the open cottage door, underneath the elm's long branches to the pavement bending o'er, underneath the mosey meadow and the dying sycamore. With the myriad stars and beauty all bedight, the heavens were seen, radiant hopes were bright around me. Like the light of stars serene, like the mellow midnight splendor of the night's irident queen, audibly the elm leaves whispered peaceful, pleasant melodies, like the distant murmured music of unquiet, lovely seas, while the winds were hushed in slumber in the fragrant flowers and trees, wondrous, unwanton beauty, still adorning all its scene, while I told my love and fables neath the willows by the stream, where the heart have kept unspoken love that was its rarest dream. Instantly away we wandered in the shadowy twilight tide, she, the silent, scornful maiden, walking calmly at my side with a step serene and stately, all in beauty, all in pride. Vacantly I walked beside her, on the earth mine eyes were cast, swift and keen there came unto me bitter memories of the past. On me like the rain in autumn, on the dead leaves cold and fast, underneath the elms we parted. By the lowly cottage door, one brief word alone was uttered, never on our lips before, and away I walked forlornly, broken-hearted evermore. Slowly, silently I loitered, homeward in the night alone. Sudden anguish bound my spirit that my youth had never known, wild unrest like that which cometh when the night's first dream hath flown. Now to me the elm leaves whisper mad discordant melodies, and keen melodies like shadows haunt the moaning willow trees. The sycamore with laughter mock me in the nightly breeze. Sad and pale the autumn moonlight through the sighing foliage streams, and each morning midnight shadow, shadow of my sorrow seems. Strive, O heart, forget thine idol, and O soul, forget thy dreams. This one is titled To Science. Science, true daughter of old time thou art, who alterest all things with thy peering eyes. Why priest thou thus upon the poet's heart? Vulture whose wings are dull realities. How should he love thee, or how deem thee wise, Who wouldst not leave him his wandering to seek for treasure in the jeweled skies? Albeit he soared with an undaunted wing, hast thou not dragged Diana from her car, and driven the hamadryad from the wood, to seek a shelter in some happier star? Hast thou not torn the naiad from her flood, the efflin from the green grass, and from me the summer dream beneath the tarman tree? Next is the Forest Reverie. Let me get a drink of water. Alright. 'Tis said that when the hands of men tamed this primeval wood, and hoary trees with groans of woe, like warriors by an unknown foe, where in their strength subdued the virgin earth gave instant birth to springs that ne'er did flow, that in the dim sun did rivulets run, and all around rare flowers did blow. The wild rose pale perfumed the gale, and the queenly lily adorned the dale, whom the sun and the dew and the winds did woo, with the gourd and the grape luxuriant grew. So when in tears the love of years is wasted like the snow, and the fine fibrils of its life by the rude wrong of instant strife are broken at a blow, within the heart do springs upstart, of which it doth now know, and strange sweet dreams like silent streams that from new fountains overflow, with the earlier tide of rivers glide deep in the heart of whose hope has died, quenching the fires its ashes hide, its ashes whence will spring and grow sweet flowers ere long, the rare and radiant flowers of song. Next is a Valentine. For her this rhyme is penned, whose luminous eyes, brightly expressive as the twins of Loeda, shall find her own sweet name, that nestling lies upon the page enwrapped from every reader. Search narrowly the lines. Oh, we've read this one, but it's slightly different. I suppose I'll finish it. Search narrowly the lines, they hold a treasure divine, a talisman, an amulet, that must be worn at heart. Search well the measure, the words, the syllables. Do not forget the trivialest point, or you may lose your labor. And yet, there is in this no Gordian knot, with which one might not undo with a saber. If one could merely comprehend the plot, and written upon the leaf were now appearing, eyes scintillating soul, there lie pertis 3 eloquent words oft uttered in the hearing of poets by poets. As the name is a poet's too, its letters, although naturally lying, the knight Pinto, Mendez, Ferdinando, still form a synonym for truth. Cease trying. You will not read the riddle, though you do the best you can do. Oddly, the place where I'm reading these from had that one listed twice. Sorry about that, I had to adjust my sitting pose. Let's see. Next is... How long is this one? Oh, this one's quite long. Oh, very long. This one should do us well. Tamerlane. Kind solace in a dying hour, such, Father, is not now my theme. I will not madly deem that power of earth may shrive me of the sin unearthly pride hath revelled in. I have no time to dote or dream. You call it hope, that fire of fire. It is but agony of desire. If I can hope, O God, I can. Its fount is holier, more divine. I would not call thee fool, old man, but such is not a gift of thine. Know thou the secret of a spirit, bowed from its wild pride into shame? O yearning heart, I did inherit thy withering portion with the flame. The searching glory which hath shone amid the jewels of my throne, halo of hell, and with a pain not hell shall make me fear again. O craving heart for the lost flowers and sunshine of my summer hours, the undying voice of that dead time with its undeterminable chime rings in the spirit of a spell upon thy emptiness a knell. I have not always been as now, the fevered diadem on my brow I claimed and won usurpingly. Hath not the same fierce Herodom given Rome to the Caesar, this to me, the heritage of a kingly mind, and a proud spirit which hath striven triumphantly with humankind? On mountain soil I first drew life, the mists of the Tagli have shed nightly their dews upon my head, and I believe the winged strife and tumult of the headlong air have nestled in my very hair. So late from heaven that dew it fell, mid dreams of an unholy night, upon me with the touch of hell, while the red flashing of the light from clouds that hung like banners o'er appeared to my half-closing eye. The pageantry of monarchy and the deep triumphant thunder roar came hurriedly upon me, telling of a human battle where my voice, my own voice, silly child, was swelling. Oh, how my spirit would rejoice and leap within me at the cry, the battle cry of victory. The rain came down upon my head, unsheltered, and the heavy wind was giant-like, so thou, my mind, it was but man, I thought, who'd shed laurels upon me, and the rush, the torrent of the chilly air. Oh, thank you so much for following. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having a lovely night. Feel free to tell me about how your day's going, but if not, just enjoy it. Of empires with the captive's prayer, the hum of suitors and the tone of flattery round sovereign's throne, my passions from that hapless hour usurped a tyranny which my men have deemed since I reached to power. My innate nature be it so, but Father, there lived one who then, in my boyhood, when thy fire burned with still intense glow, for passion must with youth expire, erein then who knew this iron heart in woman's weakness had a part. I don't like that. I have no words, alas, to tell the loveliness of loving well, nor would I now attempt to trace the more than beauty of a face, whose lineaments upon my mind are shadows on thy unstumble wind. Thus I remembered having dwelt some page of early lore upon my loitering eye, till I have felt the letters with their meaning melt to fantasies with none. Your ears grew back, you can hear again? Lovely. I'm glad to hear it. Oh, she was worthy of all love. Love is in infancy was mine. Let me do that again. Love, as in infancy, was mine. 'Twas such as an angel's mind above might envy her young heart the shine, on which my envy, hope, and thought were in sense, then a goodly gift, for thy were childish, and and upright, pure, as her young example taught. Why did I leave it, and adrift, trust to the fire within for light? We grew in age and love together, roaming the forest and the wild, my breast her shield in wintry weather, and when the friendly sunshine smiled, and she would mark the opening skies, I saw no heaven but in her eyes. Young love's first lesson is the heart, for mid that sunshine and those smiles, when from our little cares apart, and laughing at girlish wiles, I'd throw me on her throbbing breast and pour my spirit out in tears. There was no need to speak the rest, no need to quiet any fears of her who'd asked no reason why, but turned on me her quiet eye. Yet more than worthy of thy love, my spirit struggled with and strove win on the mountain peak alone. Ambition lent it to a new tone. I had no being but in thee, the world and all it did contain, in the earth, the air, the sea, its joy, its little lot of pain. That was new pleasure, the ideal dim, vanities of a dream by night, and dimmer nothings which were real, shadows, and a more shadowy light, parted upon their misty wings, and so confusedly became thine image and a name, two separate yet most intimate things. Let me take another drink of water. I'll have to get some more water whenever we finish this poem. I'll probably be going through quite a bit of it on the ASMR streams. I think I will probably keep multiple water bottles for it in the future. I was ambitious, have you known the passion, father? You have not. A cottager, I marked a throne of half the world as all my own, and murmured at such lowly lot. But just like any other dream upon the vapor of the dew, my own had passed, did not the beam of beauty which did while it throw. The minute, the hour, the day oppress my mind with double loveliness. We walked together on the crown of a high mountain which looked down afar from its proud natural towers of rock and forest on the hills, the dwindled hills begirt with bowers and shouting with 1,000 rills. I spoke to her of power and pride, but mystically in such guise that she did deem it not beside the moments converse in her eyes. I read perhaps too carelessly a mingled feeling with my own. The flush on her bright cheek to me seemed to become a queenly throne, too well that I had she'd let it be. Light in the wilderness alone, I wrapped myself in grandeur then, and donned a visionary crown. Yet it was not that fantasy had thrown her mantle over me, but that among the rabble men lion ambition enchained down, and crouches to a keeper's hand. Not so in deserts where the grand, the wild, the terrible conspire, where thine own breath is a fan in his fire. Look round thee now, Samarkand, it is not she, queen of earth, her pride above all cities, in her hand their destinies. In all beside of glory which the world hath known, stands she not nobly and alone, falling her fairiest stepping stone shall form the pedestal of a throne. And who her sovereign Timur, he whom the astonished people saw striding o'er empires hauntingly, a diademed outlaw. O human love, thou spirit given on earth of all we hope in heaven, which fallest into the soul like rain upon the Sayak withered plain, and failing in thy power to bless, but leavest the heart of wilderness. Idea, which bindest life around with music of so strange a sound, and beauty of so wild a birth, farewell, for I have won the earth. When hope the eagle that towered could see no cliff beyond him in the sky, his pinions were bent droopingly, and homeward turned his soughing eye. 'Twas sunset when the sun will part. There comes a sullenness of a heart to him who still would look upon the glory of the summer sun. That soul will hate the evening mist so often lovingly, and will list this to sound the coming darkness, known to those whose spirits hearken, as one who in a dream of night would fly, but cannot from a danger nigh. What though the moon, the white moon, shed all the splendor of her noon? Her smile is chilly, and her beam in that night of dreariness will seem so like you in a gathered bream and dream. A portrait taken after death and boyhood is a summer sun, whose waning is the dreariest one, for all we live is to know is known, and all we seek to keep hath flown. Let life then as the day flower fall with the noonday beauty which is all. I reached my home no more, for all had flown who made it so. I passed from out its mossy door, and though my tread was soft and low, a voice came from the threshold stone of one whom I had earlier known. Oh, I defy thee, hell, to show on beds of fire that burn below a humbler heart, a deeper woe. Father, I firmly do believe, I know, for death, who comes for me, from regions of the blessed afar, where there is nothing to deceive, hath left his iron gate ajar. And rays of truth you cannot see are flashing through eternity. I do believe that Eblis hath a snare in envy human hath. Else how, when in holy grove I wandered of the idol, Love, who daily scents his snowy wings, with incense of burnt offerings, from the most unpolluted things, whose pleasant bower are yet so riven, above with trellisant rays from heaven. No mote may shun, no tiniest fly, the lightning of his eagle eye. How was it that ambition crept, unseen amid the revels there, till growing bold he laughed and leapt in the tangles of love's very hair? Alright. That was Tamerlane, also by Edgar Allan Poe. I'm going to get some water. I will be right back. Alright, I am back. I've got my water. Let's look for some short stories. Let's see. one was a couple by Edgar Allan Poe, if we wanted to stick with that theme. We could do Lovecraft, but I often worry with some of his writings. Oh, we could read Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There's The Bridge of San Louis Rey. I think I've heard of it before. The Monkey's Paw. That's a good one as well, I think. There's The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. The Snows of Kilimanjaro. I think I've heard of that one before. A Clean, Well-Lighted Place by Ernest Hemingway. I know I've heard of that. Winner Take Nothing by Ernest Hemingway. If anyone has any suggestions of short stories or anything, you're more than welcome to submit them. Just gonna keep looking around for some that strike my fancy. I'm opening up several tabs of them. There's The Emperor's New Clothes. That's a pretty good one. Agatha Christie stories. I suppose I could always just read Alice in Wonderland. Seems a shame to jump to that on my first stream, though. I'd like to have a little bit more experience under my belt before we read that story. Let's see. We can start with The Emperor's New Clothes. Let me just find it. If I can find it, that is. Oh, The Emperor's New Clothes is written by the author of The Little Mermaid. I didn't know that. How interesting. Alright. Many years ago, there was an emperor so exceedingly fond of new clothes that he spent all his money on being well dressed. He cared nothing about reviewing his soldiers, going to the theater, or going for a ride in his carriage, except to show off his new clothes. He had a coat for every hour of the day, And instead of saying, as one might about any other ruler, the kings and council, here they always said, the emperor's in his dressing room. In the great city where he lived, life was always gay. Every day many strangers came to town, and among them one day came 2 swindlers. They let it be known they were weavers, and they said they could weave the most magnificent fabrics imaginable. Not only were the colors and patterns uncommonly fine, but clothes made of this cloth had a wonderful way of becoming invisible to anyone who was unfit for his office, and who was unusually stupid. Those would be just the fine clothes for me, thought the emperor. If I wore them, I would be able to discover which men in my empire are unfit for their posts, and I could tell the wise men from the fools. Yes, I certainly must get some of the stuff woven for me right away. He paid the 2 swindlers a large sum of money to start work at once. They set up 2 looms and pretended to weave. Though there was nothing on the looms, all the finest silk and purest old thread which they demanded went into their traveling bags. King of the soft-spoken hearts, I arrive to bring a message of kindness. Remember, you've made more progress to your hopes and dreams than you think. You're further ahead than you were yesterday, and even if you were to take baby steps, that's still progress. As long as you don't give up, you'll achieve them sooner than you think. Thank you. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that so very dearly. It means a lot to me, and I do agree. Thank you very much. So I fully intend to never give up, and I will continue to push towards my goals. I appreciate it. I'd like to know who those weavers are getting on with the cloth. Oh, I'm sorry, let me take a shot at that again. I'd like to know how those weavers are getting on with their cloth, the emperor thought. But he felt slightly uncomfortable when he remembered that those who were unfit for their position would not be able to see the fabric. It couldn't have been that he doubted himself, yet he thought he'd rather send someone else to see how things were going. The whole town knew about the cloth's peculiar power, and all were impatient to find out how stupid their neighbors were. I'll send my honest old minister to the weavers, the emperor decided. He'll be the best one to tell me how the material looks, for he's a sensible man and no one does his duty better. So the honest old minister went to the room where the 2 swindlers sat, working away at their empty looms. Heaven help me, he thought. His eyes flew wide open. I can't see anything at all. But he did not say so. Both the swindlers begged him to be so kind as to come near and prove the excellent pattern. The beautiful colors they pointed to the empty looms, and the poor old minister stared as hard as he dared. He couldn't see anything, because there was nothing there to see. Heaven have mercy, he thought. Can it be that I'm a fool? I'd have never guessed it, and not a soul must know. Am I unfit to be the minister? It would never do to let on that I can't see the cloth. Don't hesitate to tell us what you think of it, said one of the weavers. Oh, it's beautiful. It's enchanting. The old minister peered through his spectacles. Such a pattern. What colors? I'll be sure to tell the emperor how delighted I am with it. We're pleased to hear that, the swindler said. They proceeded to name all the colors and explain the intricate pattern. The old minister paid the closest attention so that he could tell it to the emperor, and so he did. The swindlers at once asked for the money, more silk and gold thread to get on with the weaving, but it all went into their pockets, not a thread went into their looms, though they worked at their weaving as hard as ever. The Emperor presently sent another trustworthy official to see how the work progressed, and how soon it would be ready. The same thing happened to him that had happened to the minister. He looked and looked, but as there was nothing to see in the looms, he couldn't see anything. Isn't it a beautiful piece of goods? The swindlers asked him, as they displayed and described their imaginary pattern. I know, I'm not stupid, the man thought. So it must be that I'm unworthy of my good office. That's strange. I mustn't let anyone find out, though. So he praised the material he did not see. He declared he was delighted with the beautiful colors and the exquisite pattern. To the Emperor, he said, it held me spellbound. All the town was talking of the splendid cloth, and the Emperor wanted to see it for himself while it was still in the looms. Attended by a band of chosen men, among whom were his two old trusted officials, the ones who had been to the weavers, he set out to see the two swindlers. He found them weaving with might and main, but without a thread in their looms. Magnificent, said the two officials, already duped. Just look, your majesty, what colors, what a design. They pointed to the empty looms, each supposing that the others could see the stuff. What's this? Thought the Emperor. I can't see anything. This is terrible. Am I a fool? Am I unfit to be the Emperor? What a strange thing to happen to me of all people. Oh, it's very pretty, he said. It has my highest approval. And he nodded. Aberration at the empty loom. Nothing could make him say that he couldn't see anything. His whole retinue stared and stared. One saw no more than another, but they all joined the Emperor in exclaiming, "Oh, it's very pretty," and they advised him to wear clothes made of this wonderful cloth, especially for the great procession he was soon to lead. Magnificent, excellent, unsurpassed, were banded from mouth to mouth. Everyone did his best to seem well pleased. The Emperor gave each one of the swindlers a cross to wear in his buttonhole, and the title of Sir Weaver. Before the procession, the swindlers sat up all night and burned more than 6 candles to show how busy they were finishing the Emperor's new clothes. They pretended to take the cloth off the loom. They made cuts in the air with huge scissors, and at last they said, "Now the Emperor's new clothes are ready for him." Then the Emperor himself came with noblest noblemen, and the swindlers each raised an arm as they were holding something. They said, "These are the trousers, here's the coat, and this is the mantle," naming each garment. All of them are as light as a spider's web. One would almost think he had nothing on, but that's what makes them so fine. Exactly, all the noblemen agreed, though they could see nothing, for there was nothing to see. "If your Imperial Majesty will condescend to take your clothes off," said the swindlers, "we will help you on with the new ones, here in the front of the long mirror." The Emperor undressed, and the swindlers pretended to put on his new clothes on him. One garment after another they took him around the waist, and seemed to be fastening something. That was his train as the Emperor turned round and round before the looking glass. How well your majesty's new clothes look, aren't they becoming? He heard on all sides, that pattern so perfect. Those colors so suitable, it is magnificent outfit. Then the Minister of Public Processions announced, Your Majesty's canopy is waiting outside. Well, I'm supposed to be ready, the Emperor said, and turned again for one last look in the mirror. It is a remarkable fit, isn't it? He seemed to regard his costume with the greatest interest. The noblemen who were to carry his train stooped low and reached for the floor as they were picking up his mantle. Then they pretended to lift and hold it high. They didn't dare admit they had nothing to hold. So off went the Emperor in procession. Under his splendid canopy, everyone in the streets and the windows said, Oh, how fine the Emperor's new clothes! Don't they fit him to perfection? And see his long train? Nobody would confess that he couldn't see anything, for that would prove him either unfit for his position or a fool. No costume the Emperor had worn before was ever such a complete success. But he hasn't got anything on, a little child said. Did you ever hear such an innocent prattle, said his father. And one person whispered to another what the child had said. He hasn't anything on. The child says he hasn't anything on. But he hasn't got anything on, the whole town cried out at last. The Emperor shivered, for he suspected they were right. But he thought, this procession has got to go on, so he walked more proudly than ever, as his noblemen held high the train that wasn't there at all. I like the Emperor's New Clothes. It's a very good story. It's very much so about people not, admitting their own ignorance or lack of knowledge, which is a very difficult thing to do. It's very painful to admit when you don't know something sometimes, but most of the time, the only way to learning and to greater heights is to admit when you do not already possess that knowledge or heights that you wish to possess. Let's see, what else here? This one's very, very short. I don't know about this one. We'll skip this one. I was gonna read Winner Takes Nothing from Ernest Hemingway, but it's incredibly short. This one looks better. A clean, well-lighted place, 1933, Ernest Hemingway. It was very late and everyone had left the cafe except an old man who sat in the shadow. The leaves of the tree made against the electric light in the daytime. The street was dusty, but at night the dew settled on the dust, and the old man liked to sit late because he was deaf. And now, at night, it was quiet, and he felt the difference. The two waiters inside the cafe knew that the old man was a little drunk, and while he was a good client, they knew that if he became too drunk, he would leave without paying. So they kept a watch on him. Last week he tried... Ooh. Okay, maybe we pick a different story. Yeah, that's a little heavy. I'm not gonna read the next couple lines there. Different story. Oh no. Why is my scene... Oh, I think... Oh, Shoost crashed. Hang on. Let me get that back up. Won't be but a couple seconds. I just need... There it is. Sorry, I have to find my files whenever Shoost crashes. Okay. Shall we have a change in scenery, perhaps? I think that might be nice. Let's see. How about... oh, this one's quite nice. A nice bedroom. I think it looks quite good. Let me just get my short stories back up. Alright. Let's see. We can read Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, perhaps. If I can just find where to read it. Oh wow, how nice of Kindle to offer a public domain story for $3. It's very lovely of them to charge for a public domain story. Here we go. It's on Google Books for free. Alright. Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Catherine de Matos. It's ill to lose the bands that God decreed to bind. Still will we be the children of the hither and the wind. Far away from home, oh, it's still for you and me, that the broom is blowing bonny in the north country. That was just a short letter that they included in the first part. I think the rest of it is a bit less poetic. Alright, let me take a big drink from the first page. Alright. Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Story of the Door. Mr. Utterson, the lawyer, was a man of rugged countenance that was never lighted by a smile. A cold, scanty, and embarrassed discourse, backward in sentiment, lean, long, dusty, dreary, and yet somehow lovable. At friendly meetings, and when the wine was too to his taste, something eminently human beconed. From his eye, something indeed which never found its way into his talk, but which spoke not only in these silent symbols of the often dinner face, but more often and loudly the acts of his life. He was austere with himself, drank gin when he was alone to mortify a taste for vintages, and though he enjoyed the theatre, had not crossed the doors of one for 20 years, but he had approved tolerance for others. Sometimes wondering almost with envy at the high pressure of spirits involved in their misdeeds, and in extremely inclined to help and in any extremity inclined to help rather than to reprove. I incline to Cain's heresy, he used to say quaintly. I incline to Cain's heresy? Oh, the first sin. I see. Okay. I let my brother go to the devil in his own way. In this character, it was frequently his fortune to be the last reputable acquaintance and the last good influence in the lives of drown-going men. And to such as these, so long as they came about his chambers, he never marked a shade of change in his demeanor. No doubt the feat was easy to Mr. Utterson, for he was undemonstrative at the best, and even his friendships seemed to be founded in a similar catholicity of good nature. It is the mark of a modest man to accept his friendly circle, ready-made from the hands of opportunity, and that was the lawyer's way. His friends were those of his own blood, or those whom he had known the longest. His affections, like ivy, were the growth of time. They implied no aptness in the object. Hence, no doubt, the bond that united him to Mr. Richard Enfield, his distant kinsman, the well-known man about town. It was a nut to crack for many what those two could see in each other, or what subject they could find in common. It was reported by those who encountered them in their Sunday walks that they said nothing, looked singularly dull, and would hail with alias relief that the appearance of a friend. For all that, the two men put their greatest store by the excursions, counted them the chief jewel of each week, and not only set aside occasions of pleasure, but even rested the calls of business that they might enjoy them uninterrupted. It chanced on one of these rambles that their way led them down a by-street in a busy quarter of London. The street was small and it was called quiet, but it drove a thrilling trade on the weekdays. The inhabitants were all doing well, it seemed, and all immodestly hoped to do better still, and laying out the surplus of their gains and I've not seen this word before in my life, coquetry, so that the shop fronts stood along the thoroughfare. It doesn't happen very often. Usually when I see these words, it's like I don't see them often, but I still recognize them, but I have never seen coquetry. I might have heard it spoken once. It must be just a word for baubles. With an air of invitation like rows of smiling saleswomen, even on Sunday when it veiled its more florid charms and lay comparatively empty of passage, the street shone out in contrast to its dingy neighborhood, like a fire in a forest, and with its fleshly painted shutters, well-polished brasses, and general cleanliness and gaiety of note, instantly caught and pleased the eye of the passenger. Two doors from one corner and the left hand going east, the line was broken by the entry of a court, and just at the point of a certain sinister block of the building, thrust forward its gable on the street. It was 2 stories high and showed no windows, nothing but a door on the lower story and a blind forehead of disclosure on the wall of the upper, and bore in every feature the marks of prolonged and sordid negligence. The door, which was equipped with neither bell nor knocker, was blistered and stained. Tramps slouched into the recess and struck matches on the panels. Children kept shop upon the steps. The schoolboy had tried his knife on the moldings, and for close on a generation, no one appeared to drive away these random visitors or to repair their ravages. Mr. Enfield and the lawyer were on the other side of the by-street, but when they came abreast of the entry, their former lifted up his cane and pointed. "Did you ever remark that door?" he asked. And when his companion had replied in affirmation, "It is connected in my mind," added he, "with a very odd story indeed." "Indeed," said Mr. Utterson, with a slight change of voice. "And what was that?" "Well, it was this way," returned Mr. Enfield. "I was coming home from some old place at the end of the world about 3 o'clock of a black winter morning. On my way, lay through a part of town where there was literally nothing to be seen but lamps. Street after street, and all the folks asleep. Street after street, all lighted up, as for in procession, and all as empty as a church. Till at last I got into the state of mind when a man listens and listens and begins to long for the sight of a policeman. All at once I saw 2 figures, one a little man who was stumping along east at a good walk, and the other a girl of maybe 8 or 10 who was running as hard as she was able down a cross street. Well, sir, the 2 ran into one another naturally enough at the corner, and then came the horrible part of the thing, for the man trampled calmly over the child's body and left her screaming on the ground. It sounds nothing to hear, but it was hellish to see. It wasn't like a man. It was like some damned juggernaut. I gave a view halloa, took to my heels and collared my gentleman, and brought him back to where there was already quite a group about the screaming children. He was perfectly cool and made no resistance, but gave me one look so ugly that it brought out the sweat on me like running. The people who had turned out were the girl's own family, and pretty soon the doctor for whom she had been sent. But in his appearance, well, the child was not much the worse, more frightened according to the sawbones. And there you might be surprised, but it would be the end of it. But there was one more curious circumstance I had taken a loathing to my gentleman at. First sight, so had the child's family, which was only natural, but the doctor's case is what struck me. He was the unusual cut and dry apothecary, of no particular age and color, with a strong Edinburgh accent, and about as emotional as a bagpipe. Well, sir, he was like the rest of us. Every time he looked at my prisoner, I saw that the sawbones turned sick and white with desire to kill him. I knew what was in his mind, just as he knew what was in mine. And killing being out of the question, we did the next best. We told the man we could and would make such a scandal out of this, as should we make worse his name. Stink from one end of London to the other. If he had any friends or any credit, we undertook that he should lose them. And all the time, as we were pitching it in a red hot, we were keeping the women off him as best we could, for they were as wild as harpies. I never saw a circle of such hateful faces, and there was the man in the middle with a kind of black, sneering coolness. Frightened too, I could see that, but carrying it off. sir, really like Satan. If you choose to make it capital out of this. Let me try that again. If you choose to make capital out of this accident, said he, I am naturally helpless. No gentleman but wishes to avoid a scene, says he. Name your figure. Well, we screwed him up to £100. He would have clearly liked to stick it out, but there was something about the lot of us that meant mischief, and at last he struck. The next thing was to get the money, and where do you think he carried us but to the place with the door? Whipped out a key and went in, and presently came back with a matter of £10 in gold, a cheque for the balance on Crotus drawn, payable to bearer and signed with a name that I can't mention, though it's one of the points of my story, but it was the name, at least, very well known and often printed. The figure was stiff, but the signature was good for more than that. If it was only genuine. I took the liberty of pointing to my gentleman that the whole business looked apocryphal, and that a man does not in real life walk into a cellar door at 4 in the morning and come out with another man's cheque for close upon £100. But he was quite easy and sneering. Set your minds at rest, says he. I will stay with you till the banks open and cash the cheque myself. So we all set off, the doctor and the child's father, and our friend and myself passed the rest of the night in my chambers. And next day, when had breakfast, went in, a body to the bank. I gave in the cheque myself, and said I had every reason to believe it was forgery. Not a bit of it. The cheque was genuine. Tut tut, said Mr. Utterson. I see. You feel as I do, said Mr. Enfield. Yes, it's a bad story, for my man was a fellow that nobody could have to do with. A really damnable man, and the person that drew the cheque is the very pink of the properties, and celebrated too. Had a friend called David, lost his ID, now you call him Dav. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh. I get it. I get it now. I'm sorry, I was a little slow at that. Good pun. Very well done. Very, very well done. Welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Where were we? What makes it worse? One of your fellows who do what they call good, blackmail, I suppose, an honest man paying through the nose for some of the capers of his youth. Blackmail House is what I call that place, with the door in consequence, though even that, you know, is far from explaining all, he added, and with the words fell into a vein of musing. How many pages is this? Oh dear. This is 156 pages long. We're on page 10. I looked up short stories, not a whole book. We'll probably read a couple pages more and then probably call it. Maybe we'll get to the 2-hour mark. I think that'll be good. Yeah. From this, he was recalled by Mr. Utterson, asking rather suddenly, "And you don't know if the drawer of the checks lives there?" "A likely place, isn't it?" returned Mr. Enfield. "But I happen to have notice his address. He lives in some square or other, and you never asked about the place with the door, Mr. Utterson?" "No, sir, I had a delicacy." was the reply. I feel very strongly about putting questions. It partakes too much of the style of the day, of judgment. You start a question, and it's like starting a stone. You sit quietly on the top of a hill, and away the stone goes, starting others, and presently some bland old bird. And the last you would have thought of it is knocked on the head in his own black garden, and the family have to change their name. No, sir, I make it a rule of mine. The more it looks like Queer Street, the less I ask. A very good rule, too, said the lawyer. But I have studied the place for myself, continued Mr. Enfield. It seems scarcely a house. There is no other door, and nobody goes in or out that one, but once in a great while. I don't like these two guys. I hope Mr. Hyde gets him. The Story of the Door, page 11. The gentleman of my adventure. There are 3 windows looking on the court of the first floor. None below. The windows are always shut, but they're clean. And then there is a chimney, which is generally smoking, so somebody must live there. And yet it's not so sure, for the buildings are so packed together about that court that it's hard to say where one ends and the other begins. The pair walked on again for a while in silence, and then Enfield said, Mr. Utterson, that's a good rule of yours. Yes, I think it is, returned Enfield. But for all that, continued the lawyer, there's one point I want to ask. I want to ask the name of that man who walked over the child. Well, said Mr. Enfield, I can't see what harm it would do. It was a man of the name of Hyde. Said Mr. Utterson. What sort of a man is he to see? He is not easy to describe. There is something wrong with his appearance, something displeasing, something downright detestable. I never saw a man I so disliked, and yet I scarce know why. He must be deformed somewhere. He gives a strong feeling of deformity, although I couldn't specify the point. These guys suck. I don't like these guys. Although, he's an extraordinary looking man, and yet I really can't name nothing out of the way. No, sir, I can make no hand of it. I can't describe him, and it's not want of memory, for I declare I can see him this moment. Mr. Utterson again walked some way in silence, and obviously under a weight of concentration. You are sure he used a key? He inquired at last. My dear sir, began Enfield, surprised out of himself. Yes, I know, said Utterson. I know it must seem strange. The fact is, if I do not ask you the same name of the name... let me try that again. Yes, I know, said Utterson. I know it must seem strange. The fact is, if I do not ask you the name of the other party, it is because I know it already. You see, Richard, your tale has gone home. If you have been innocent in any point, you had better correct it. I think you might have warned me, returned the other with a touch of sullenness. But I have been pedantically exact, as you call it. The fellow had a key. And what's more, he has it still. I saw him use it not a week ago. Mr. Utterson sighed deeply, but said never a word. The young man presently resumed. Here is another lesson to say nothing, said he. I am ashamed of my long tongue. Let us make a bargain to never refer to this again. With all my heart, said the lawyer. I shake hands on that, Richard. I think that's a good place to stop on this short story, honestly. We've not quite hit our 2-hour mark, but I think that's enough reading for today, honestly. Should we stop here? We are only 10 minutes from 2 hours. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to just call it early. Let me look upon who to raid. Trying to find someone else whom is doing ASMR. Seems I'll have to search the category. I don't have anyone that I'm following in the ASMR. This one looks good enough, I suppose. Yeah. Alright. This one is recommended to me, so I will raid us into Kasumi VTuber. They're doing Wolf Helps You Relax. No sus. Okay. Channel. Alright. Thank you so much for joining me today. Going to raid us on over to Kasumi VTuber. I've not met them before, but they seem lovely. Be sure to give them my emotes when you come in if you want to, or however you like to. If you're resting, then continue to dream well. May your heart be at rest. And I'll see you again soon. Rest well. Good night.